everything that I know says I gotta go, tired of going solo. But I'm never gonna go there again. This is what it is, this is who I am, this is where I finally take my stand. I didn't wanna fall, but I don't have to grow. I'm not the one with two star hands, giving him the best of everything that's left of the life inside this man. I've been born again.
Yes, we've been born again, as we tell you every weekend. Are you born again?
Yeah.
You know, one of these days we're going to have to explain to people how they can be born again. I mean, we take it for granted that our audience understands what the song means and what we mean, but one of these days, hopefully it's not too late for everyone.
Cut to the chase on that?
Yeah, cut to the
I thought of
chase.
something. I remember listening decades ago on TBN. Paul Crouch is talking to a theologian, Stuart McBurney, out there in West Coast.
Yeah, I've heard that name, yes.
And Stuart told a story back when he was in seminary. He said C.S. Lewis had just come out with the book Mere Christianity. Now, Stuart hadn't had a chance to read it yet.
Right.
But he was trying to understand in theological terms, and you've been to seminary. You know how deep in the weeds sometimes things get in a seminary.
True.
And he said to Professor Lewis, he said, how watered down can someone's Christianity be and still save him? Well, C.S. Lewis wrote him back pretty quickly, and it was very much to the point. He says, Dear Mr. McBurney, Christianity doesn't save anyone. Jesus does. It's about a relationship.
Yeah.
And that's the key to what C.S. Lewis says in Mere Christianity. You know, peel away all of the layers of doctrinal, denominational dogmas and just get down to, do you know Jesus?
Right.
You have a relationship.
Honestly, that is it. In fact, in his own testimony of how he came to the Lord, he talks about ultimately it ends up, no matter how much knowledge, how much you explain to a person, how much they understand, whatever, it always comes down to that leap of faith.
Yeah.
It always, he says, in the end, you either believe it or you don't.
Yeah.
You have to take that last step of a leap of faith. And it's so funny how we want to almost spoon feed it to people.
Yeah.
And you don't have to spoon feed it. In fact, the Bible tells us that our only job is to tell them. I don't know if I've explained this, or man, we're getting into it now.
Yeah,
so
we
in a
are.
way, but I was in Austria. Okay, when I was Youth with a Mission, Musicians for Missions, we would take these groups, music groups, and then I would preach at the end.
Yeah.
And we're in Austria, which a lot of Nazis ended up in Argentina and South America, but a lot of them just went over to Austria, which is the neighboring, up in these little villages out in Africa, you call it the bush, but in Austria, it'd be the mountains, So I'm in this little village, some little village in Austria, and here's this black American preaching to these
Nazis.
basically.
Yeah.
And so I'm sharing the gospel, and I see these guys in the back, and all of a sudden, I'm sharing, and there's a German word for crap. It's Quatsch. Quatsch. Almost sounds like crap. Quatsch. And these guys start heckling, basically, And so all of a sudden in the middle, I guess they've had it. So they get up, and like the audience is right in front of me, but instead of getting up and walking out, in the doors, the entry was on the side, not in the back. But instead of getting out and just walking out the side, they decide they're going to go this way, walk up to the front, walk right up to in front of me. And, I figured next thing coming was a Heil Hitler or a finger or something.
Yeah.
And they were just, and walked out. And at that moment, instead of me saying, oh no, I failed, it was like the Lord spoke to me and said, it's not your job to convince them. that scripture, it's not our job to convince them. It's our job to tell them. It's the Holy Spirit's job to convince them, and their job either to receive or to reject.
Yeah.
And so these guys, and then walked out.
Yep.
But it was so relieving from that moment on. I no longer ever felt a burden when I share the gospel with anybody or tell anybody. It's not my job to make you believe, make them believe, and it's not your job if you're a believer to cause your relatives, your friends, anybody you know, don't carry that burden or feel like you're a failure if they don't accept or believe because of you. You know, the only thing you can do is maybe be a hindrance because of your lifestyle or whatever.
There you go.
But as far as you preaching the gospel or sharing the gospel or trying to convince them, you don't have to worry about it. And so it was just so freeing. And there's so many times where people that I would tell and I didn't get results, then years later, somebody tells me, oh, do you remember so-and-so? Yeah, well, oh yeah, I remember them. They hated me. They this and that. Well, no, they've come to the Lord, and they said they never forgot. This one girl in particular at this first job I had, she ran from me, and my boss called me aside and said, you got to quit doing this. You got to quit. This poor girl's terrified of me because I was always sharing the gospel. So they made me stop. But years later, the girl told another friend of mine to be sure to tell me that what I shared with her, she never forgot. And she ended up coming to the Lord as a result of what I had told her. And there was it just wasn't a time. There was a time to planting the seed.
Right.
Someone watered it and someone reaped. But everybody shared in that. So anyway, that's just something that...
Yeah. What I want to say on this, as a young man, as a pastor, somebody gave me a book by a guy who's not a theologian, but became my favorite American theologian. His name's Peter Kreeft. He taught philosophy at Boston U. And he wrote a Socrates series, and one of them was Socrates Meets Jesus. And Socrates comes back to life in modern day America with the fantasy thing. It's very C.S. Lewis like, and these professors are asking him, so what have you learned about Jesus? He says, I did better than learning about him. I met Jesus. And have you met Jesus? Because that's the important thing. Not that you learn about him, you meet Jesus.
Yeah. It's, and I'll just share this real quickly. Well, there's a couple of things I want to say, but this week I got a call from I want to say young man. He's an old man, but the guy that led me to the Lord.
Nice.
He called me because I sent him my book, and he was discussing about when we first met. And it was at a Sambo's restaurant. If you remember Sambo's, say, back in the day, you could actually have a place called Sambo's.
That's right.
And it became Denny's later.
That's right.
But anyway, I was with this friend, and this friend of mine just attacked him. I had him scared to death. He was scared to death. But I told my friend, hey, leave him alone, let him, because I was hungry. I wanted to hear. to hear. And so my friend would just cuss him out and all of this, and had him afraid. But anyway, and we were just sharing and reminiscing about those days when how he shared and how I listened, and ultimately, I came to the Lord in spite of my friend threatening.
Yeah.
So, but he persevered. He was young. He was like 19 years old, and I was 22. Yet he was not afraid. He was scared. There's a difference being afraid and scared, I think. So he was scared, but he was not afraid. If you can make a distinction between the two, he was not afraid to share the gospel, but he was scared of my friend, or vice versa. However you want to do that. But anyway, in spite of his fear of my friend, he continued to share the gospel, and I responded. And here we are many years later, and I give him credit in the book because my eternal life, he is responsible for my eternal life. And it's so wonderful to here's what's funny too. He actually fell away. He backslid.
Oh.
He went in the Navy and got all messed up and fell away, and then. But then he came back. He's come back to the Lord. You know, I mean, he's been back several years now. I mean, this is 50 years ago when all
Yes.
this happened. But man, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, and speaking of 50 years, the reason we didn't do a show last week, I have to say, is because I went to my alma mater, Texas Tech. They had their first Black student reunion,
Yeah.
and so I went there. And I have to tell you, Dave, it was heartening and disheartening all at once.
Tell me about that.
Okay. It was heartening to see all of, well, no, not all, but so many of my old classmates, the people, the pioneers, I call them, the first generation of Black students, the people who actually fought the fight
Yeah.
to integrate this Southwest Conference school. We were the first 50 Black students.
Is that right?
Yeah. I was one of the first 6 football players on the Texas Tech.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah.
You troublemaker, you.
I was the first Black student in my dormitory.
Oh, wow.
I was first, so many different things. I don't know if I ever told the story of how when I got to Texas Tech, I got there early.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I've always been one who didn't follow directions well.
Do you think?
We were supposed to arrive, I guess, on Monday. I arrived on a Saturday or something, and so I came all the way from Germany, so I'm 6,000 miles from home.
Can't go to mommy.
No, I've got suitcases, here, bags over my, and so I had to taxi from the airport, take me, and I show up on campus, and I'm walking around campus, and nothing is open, nothing. I mean, and so I figured, well, even though they're not letting us in the door, at least something should be open that you could sit. Now I'm walking. So here comes,
Especially a Black man.
well, no, I mean, we're like 2 years from integration where they even let Black people in there.
Yeah.
But anyway, so up drives this Grand Prix. Okay. And this is like one of these old Dukes of Hazzard, even pre-Dukes of Hazzard cars. It had the Longhorn. This is Texas, West Texas now, has a Longhorn, the horns
Yes.
in the grill, right?
Yes.
I'm not making this up. Right? This is the truth. Here comes this Grand Prix with these Longhorns in the grill, 3 cowboys, big Stetson hats and everything, and they pull up beside me. And the guy on the driver's side, and there's one in the back seat, and the guy in the back seat, they got their chew, and the guy, looks out and spits his chew out, not at me, but on the ground, and says, "What's going on, spook?"
Oh, spook. Yeah.
Spook, yeah. This was his welcome to Texas Tech.
That's your first nickname on campus.
Yeah, my first nickname. What's going on, spook? And what's funny is, see, my friends and I in Germany, the Black friends, all my buddies, we used to call each other spooks.
Okay.
I mean, it was just, what's going on with that spook or you spooker? So it was just something so when I heard these white West Texas cowboys call me spook, I started laughing. And these guys look at each other, and it was like they were thinking, this nigga's crazy. And so I sit there, look, and the guy hits the gas, and they take off. Instead of giving me any more trouble, they just hit the gas and take off. And here I am, 18-year-old,
By yourself.
by myself with all these bags.
The only Black guy around.
Only anything. There's nobody. They could have jumped out and beat me to a pulp or whatever, kidnap me, whatever. But anyway, they take off, in a car.
Yeah, no, was this in like what, 70?
No, in 1969.
69.
69. And so anyway, and that was my welcome to Texas Tech University.
Wow.
And so, but anyway, so that was, and then my, going into my dorm, I was supposed to, I may have told this, I was supposed to have a semi-private room with a roommate, but my roommate, when he found out he had a Black roommate, I ended up with a private room.
Oh.
At semi-private rates, though. See, some people would think that, this racist didn't want. I thought, hey, this is great. My parents,
So you got special treatment.
I got special treatment. Yeah, exactly. See,
Black privilege.
that's black privilege. See, some people see what some people. What's the old saying? You know, turning a sow's ear, a pig's ear, into a purse. You know, I mean, you can make it whatever you want to it. I've always been able to see things a little differently from others. You know.
Yeah, you remember.
And I made friends. Everybody on my floor.
Yeah.
All my friends. You know, I hooked up with farm boys, cowboys.
Yeah.
And frat boy. I mean, everybody.
Right.
We were all young freshmen together.
Yeah,
and
you're all in the same boat
We're
together.
all in it together, and we hung out. And it's so funny because we had kids from California, from West Texas, South Texas, Dallas, and I'm the only black one. But man, after about 2 weeks, nobody cared or knew where anybody was from.
And it was because there's more that united you than separated you.
Yeah.
And you focused on what united you. Hello, Republicans, conservatives. Focus on what unites us, not what separates us.
Yeah.
You know, I do want to say Brian Piccolo discovered that in a weird way when all of a sudden team management, Chicago Bears, when he's a rookie and so is Gale Sayers, and they said, we want you to room with Gale. Do you have a problem with that? And you're like, no. So he goes over and talks to Gale. He says, hey, and all of a sudden the light comes on. You know what that means? That means we made the team. They wouldn't have cared if we roomed, if we didn't make, if they're going to cut us, you know.
Yeah. He didn't even think about it. All he was thinking about, we made the team.
Exactly.
That is funny. Do you care if you room with Gail? What? I made the team.
Yes.
It's kind of like Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
You know, he says, if there's a chance, do you have a chance you and I could ever get together? And she said, well, maybe 1 in a million. Yes.
So there is a chance.
So there's a chance.
Yes.
You know, that's the thing about when you have a positive attitude. But again, what I was saying was so kind of sad is how many of my generation, the same ones who came with me, great jobs making. In fact, one of the ones, I won't say a name, but he was an All-American football player. He was a fraternity brother of mine. All-American, played professional football, the whole 9 yards. And the only thing he could say to me when he came to me, yeah, hey, I hear you're a conservative now. How's that? Why are you a conservative? And he started wondering that, and his wife came in and said, hey, start. He said, that's all right. That's great. You know, his wife was taking my, all he could think about, I'm a conservative, so there must be something wrong, you know. And
It's that woman you married, that white woman.
No, he doesn't even know who I married. No,
Okay.
He just heard that I was a conservative.
Yeah.
That was all, my political views and everything. And so we didn't even get to that. In fact, he can't say anything about it because there's several of the guys that married white or Hispanic or something else. That one, it was just the conservative thing,
Yeah.
And I could have just stood there and ripped him to shreds with all kinds of stuff,
Yep.
You took white man's money to play for the blank team, or the this or the this or the, and because the arguments are stupid. The arguments are stupid.
Yep.
You went to this school, you took their scholarship, you took their money, you became, it helped you become a professional, which got you your degree, which started your business, which you have now. Your son went here. You're this. You look around you, look what all guys. Right now, we're at an African American Cultural Center that they built, and they're doing this. This whole weekend is geared to it. So you tell me where it's your beef.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But they don't stop to think it's because, if you quit watching BET or MSNBC and take your head out of your butt and watch actual real news and broaden your vision, you might see that America is greater than the limited things that you're seeing.
But what is Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson going to do for a living if people quit listening to all the race baiters?
Yeah, well, that's true.
That's just it, isn't it? Yeah. Hey, I want to tie this into something else historic, and you were in a unique position to observe it pretty close up. just down the road and to the west, there was a little college there in El
West
Paso.
Texas. Oh, UTEP. Texas
Well, it's
Western.
not- right.
Texas Western, now UTEP.
Yeah. And there was a pretty insightful basketball coach
Don
that proved
Haskins.
something nationally by doing something. Most of our people under 50 years old won't know about that.
Yeah. It's
What
funny
happened?
because I had just come there in, what month did we get? October, I think, or November of 64. And then that spring is when Texas Western College, which became University of Texas at El Paso, won the national championship,
Tell us how
Beating-
that happened,
beating Kentucky.
right?
Adolph, what's it?
Rupp?
Rupp.
Yes.
The Kentucky legend, supposedly legendary basketball coach,
Yeah.
who's pretty
Well, Rupp Arena's named
bigoted.
after him there.
Yeah, he had some pretty bigoted background. He would never recruit any black players. Of course, that was the end of him. That was his last year there too, because of that fact. You know, I think he retired because
Who's the coach there at El Paso or West Texas? I forget
at that
his-
time.
Yeah.
It was Don Haskins.
Don Haskins.
Don Haskins.
No
Who,
relation. Well,
he was good friends. All of these guys were disciples of Mo Iba.
yeah. Well, Iber Arena here is named
Yeah,
after.
Iba, and what's his name at OSU?
Henry. Well,
The one that passed away.
Eddie Sutton.
Eddie Sutton, Don Haskins, Bobby Knight.
Oh yeah.
All of these.
Iba
all of
had
these-
huge disciples.
Yeah.
Krasinski. I remember his funeral.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everybody showed up
because
and
these
said-
are all decided. He's the one who brought in taught the defense, the importance of this certain type style of basketball. I'm not a basketball guru, but anyway, and so these are all like disciple. It's kind of like Leach, Mike Leach,
Yes.
and what he has spawned
Right.
down the league. You know,
Right.
Leach will not get credit now, but once Leach passes away, you'll see all these, you know, his tree, or the guy at Iowa, that Bob Stoops and all of these Youngstown out of Youngstown, Youngstown State, I guess, is where all these people played, and they all came from the same coach. I can't remember who it was, his name, but it's the same type of thing that all of these players came out of that tree. And but it was an all black. It was an all black team, but all of the starters and the bench pretty much they were all black. And this all black team ends up winning the national championship, beating an all white University
under
of Kentucky.
Don Haskins.
Yeah, under Don Haskins.
Yeah.
And so that kind of changed basketball forever. After that, it was just one of those.
And you know, I watched, and this was years later in the '80s. Bobby Knight was paired early on, but you know, Indiana had one of the top powerhouse teams. But one of Haskins' last years, they're playing, I think, in first round. And he comes up to Haskins, very old-fashioned, was wearing this plaid blazer
Oh, yeah.
and a tie. And Bobby Knight had this, you know, very trademark red sweater, right? The pullover V-neck sweater that Bobby Knight's known for. And he comes up to Haskins beforehand, and it's this Bobby Knight's little way of digging at you. He shakes his hand, grabs his tie, and pop, it's a clip-on right in front of national TV.
I'll tell you, the first year Bobby Knight coached at Indiana, I got to see him, and Don Haskins invited him to come to the Sun Bowl Classic basketball tournament at UTEP.
Yeah.
And so my dad, I was home for Christmas, and so I went to the game.
Now, you guys live down in, what, Houston area?
No, in El Paso.
El Paso. Okay,
Yeah.
that's right.
So he was at Fort Bliss. So anyway, so I'm sitting there, and we're right down on the second row, and I'm looking across the court, and I'm watching this coach, and this animated coach. I mean, it was crazy.
You're talking about Bobby.
Bobby Knight.
Yeah.
And nobody knew who he was.
Yeah.
And I kept telling my dad, I said, Dad, look at this guy. Look at this guy. He's nuts. There's something wrong with that guy. because he was up, he was yelling, he was throwing stuff. I mean, he was always like that. But he's the one that had this plaid, I mean, red, yellow, and green blazer on.
Yeah, early on that was him.
And nobody knew who he was, and they ended up because University of Houston had this unbelievable team. The average height was 6'9". Their guards were 6'9".
Yeah,
and I mean, unbelievable. And I was rooting for Houston at that time.
Yeah,
and but I think Indiana ended up winning that game, and then the next year, Indiana actually I think won the national championship.
Yeah,
and, this was 72, and 73 is when I think Bobby Knight already took them to the national championship. So but hey, listen.
Yeah, that was my history thing, because Eddie, you were part of that history, that integration that happened throughout the 60s. You saw it up close, and I just wanted.
It doesn't mean anything. I'm still an Uncle Tom.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, speaking of Uncle Tom, you know what's his name? What is his name from California? He did this documentary, Uncle Tom. Oh, you know him. He does the commercials for Relief Factor. Larry Elder.
Yeah.
Larry Elder has this. He has this documentary. If you haven't seen it, it's called Uncle Tom. It's really well done. Better than I thought. Well, now they've come out with Uncle Tom 2.
Oh.
Yeah, they've got a new one out, so it's pretty good. If you get a chance, check it out, Uncle Tom 2, because it shows some of the history of black conservatism and what particularly what the Democrat Party is really about, and in relation to Black Americans, and how that's been hidden, the hidden history of the Democrat Party in relation to Black Americans. All right.
What's happening?
Wow, man, we have come.
There we go.
Way off rabbits.
It's a good story, though.
Rabbits and rats.
It's a good story. We got to talk history once in a while.
Yeah, every now and then. It is amazing the things that I have been privileged to. I think I told you I got to meet JFK. That's one of those little. It's amazing some of the things that God has allowed me to do in my life. Meeting JFK, Sly Stone. Some of the things that I'm not so proud of, Dick Gregory, some of the things that I've been able to do or see and be witness to. You too, I'm sure, seen, you know, we're alive to be able to see live.
Oh, yeah.
The assassination of Oswald, I got to see that live on TV. I wasn't there, but I got to see it live on TV. Some of the things we've experienced. So, you know, this is what makes me mad about a lot of the black anger and rather all these young people. It really infuriates me, because I actually experienced discrimination. You know, I was in Philadelphia with my little cousin trying to go ice skating and couldn't go through this neighborhood because it was a white neighborhood, and the kids in that neighborhood wouldn't let us go through the neighborhood and started throwing rocks at us and calling us names. And so we had to walk all the way around the neighborhood, an extra mile or two, just so we could get to this skating rink on the other side of the neighborhood. And I remember being at the airport in Washington, D.C., and standing there at the counter and having the people dish out hamburgers and give them to people on my right and left, one after another, and just act like I wasn't there. And I finally just had to snatch one from the person next to me and wait for somebody to say something, or I would have never gotten a hamburger. And the people understood, you know, they see it. Yeah, but the person working there didn't care, you know. That's so I mean, that was just part of, I mean, there were all kinds of things I've actually experienced firsthand, but I didn't let it embitter me and make me hate white people.
You're supposed to, though.
No, I'm not.
Exactly.
No, it makes me understand that was a dumb, ignorant individual.
Right. You didn't take the bait.
Right.
The bait that Al Sharpton and them are trying to make you take.
Now, at the time, maybe I did, because I was, you know, unsaved, unregenerated.
Yeah.
I didn't see things with the mind that I see things now.
Right.
The broader picture, the picture of eternity.
Yeah.
I didn't see things as Jesus sees them.
Yeah.
That this is a flawed human being.
Yeah.
And I didn't see it from the other side that there are black people who are just as bad, if not worse.
Right.
And in fact, in today's society, in the black community, it's probably even worse. The vitriol and the bitterness towards white. In fact, I've got a story we're going to get to in a little bit that may be just as bad, if not worse, or leading us there. And so, but anyway, that's why I just want to share that some of this, it brought some of this up. I got to talk about my book. I got to present my book.
Ah, nice.
Sell a few of them. The people didn't know what they were buying. And so I'm waiting to see. Here, I gave them my email address, waiting to hear back when they finish, get some feedback. But I'll tell you what, though, I was very impressed by some of these young people. You talk about smart, engineering, astrophysics, and these are black kids. Finance and accounting and just crazy stuff. The chairman of the Air Force is from Texas Tech. We've had an astronaut, and we're talking about black people, astronauts, chairman of the Air Force right now, business leaders of corporations and things, all Texas Tech graduates. It's a great school. The business school there is one of the most underrated business schools in the country. I'm just going to toot a horn for any of these people that have kids.
Yeah.
That are looking at going to engineering and business and oil, and in the oil industry. You can't find a better school with oil and geology.
The odd thing, though, is you don't stumble upon Texas Tech by accident. It's a deliberate drive to Lubbock, Texas. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I can't believe how big it is. Dan.
It is.
It just exploded. I couldn't believe they've got new freeways everywhere. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
How big this town is now. It's like
back 15, 20 years ago, Doug Gottlieb, who's now in sports broadcasting, when he was Eddie Sutton's point guard at Oklahoma State, he used to call Jim Rome, because they're both from L.A. Doug Gottlieb grew up, Jewish boy from L.A., and he would make jokes about living in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
May Stillwater explode like Texas. In fact, Stillwater and Texas Tech are sister schools, actually.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know this. But may Stillwater one day explode like Lubbock did. The difference is, it shouldn't be much of a difference because they're both like out there, You know
what? Texas does something well. Their university systems, as far as the State Board of Higher Regions goes, they see 3 school systems in higher ed: Tech, A&M, and University of Texas.
Right.
Whereas in Oklahoma, our Board of Regents spreads it like 20 different directions, and they don't focus on organizing it with the feeder schools that are part of the Texas Tech network, part of the A&M, part of the Longhorn network, and that's part of our problem here in Oklahoma is we didn't organize this well, and we that's just another thing we've got to reform in Oklahoma.
Yeah, you're right, because we've got now the Texas Tech Medical School is in like 4 different cities now.
Right.
El Paso has the medical school, and you go down the freeway, and these overpasses have these giant pillars holding them up.
Yeah.
But it's got a Texas Tech emblem in there, middle of it, Texas Tech Medical School.
Yeah.
And this huge, beautiful medical school and hospital with lit up Texas Tech in it. And then in San Angelo, you've got Texas Tech San Angelo.
Yeah. Now, see, because of that, you can, in a more streamlined way, get your undergraduate degree at any number of the feeder schools. And then you transition right into their graduate schools. And like one of the top cannabis researchers, Dr. Francisca Philbay, she did her research, it's cutting edge research, with the University of Texas at Dallas. See, so just like you've got the Schusterman campus finally in Tulsa for OU, and then OSU now is expanding hugely in Tulsa.
Yeah.
But we're behind Texas and Oklahoma in reorganizing this.
Now, UTD University of Texas Dallas, though, is like on another whole level. It's almost an Ivy League school. That's a real hard one to get.
When the oil money
it's
started
higher.
coming
It's
in,
higher academically. It's at a higher level
Yeah.
than Austin.
and that was very centrally planned back in the 80s when the oil money really started to come in. They determined that University of Texas was going to be as good or better than any Ivy League school. You know, now have they made that? I don't know. That's their football team.
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course you got TCU and Baylor, which are the two private schools, which are really, really good schools.
Yes.
Really, really as well. SMU,
Oh yeah,
those Methodists and those Christians and those,
Yeah.
TCU I guess is Church of Christ. I think.
yeah. TCU. Then you got Baylor, and of course you've got
Abilene
the
Christian.
Yes.
You got ACU
Yeah.
now.
So in Rice is another
Oh, yeah, I
private
forgot.
school.
Yeah, they got all those schools too. Lubbock Christian. You got another Lubbock.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're 20 times the size.
All right, Dave.
Yes.
Man, we could.
Hey, what's on the news, Eddie?
We could get. we've got over a half hour on this, and we could talk for days. As I think you could. We could. You figured that out. Hey, listen. Couple of things. They've appointed a special master. The Trump administration has gotten them administration. Well, might as well be. But the Trump people, the legal team, has gotten them to appoint a special master over the raid, over the materials that have been snatched from Mar-a-Lago. And praise God for that. That's an answer to prayer, because now we will have someone that does it in a judicious way. And I don't know if you noticed, all of a sudden, the leaks have stopped.
Sure.
The leaks have stopped because I know they're prejudicing their case by leaking out to the media. Before, all this stuff, nuclear secrets were leaking. This was leaking. This was, no. But now all of a sudden, but the DOJ is still appealing the ruling. They're still trying to stop it. If there's nothing to see here, why would you appeal a ruling to have a special master that is just looking at and deciding what can be given out, unredacted?
Yeah.
Why would you worry about that? If you're in the right, you shouldn't worry about it.
Yeah.
Because if you're just going to trial with it, you shouldn't need a special master, a neutral party to be. And apparently, the person they picked, they agreed to the person that was picked to be chosen. And the special master they chose is Judge Raymond Dearie. He's a Bush appointee.
Okay.
And he's been named the special master, and both sides have agreed to Judge Dearie.
Yeah, I think they had a short list of people that they both kind of agreed that if we're going to do this, we'll do it. But yeah, the DOJ still, they're offended that anybody would question their integrity.
Really?
Yeah, and now
what integrity?
This
They have not
raid-
shown any integrity.
Yeah, the FBI has had a policy, internal policy, that 90 days before an election, they do not take action on anything that could be seen as politically significant to that election. So they did the raid of Mar-a-Lago just 3 days before that 90-day, right? And this was Trump's best maneuver in what we call lawfare, using the courts in a political battle.
Right. Because now this will not actually come to any kind of fruition or conclusion until after.
Well, if it does, because then it's clearly a leak and a sabotage.
Yeah.
And so what the FBI now has done since then, on one day, they issued 35 subpoenas or actual search warrants on some of it. Just if you had anything to do with Trump, even, my friend Mike Lindell. How scary is this? He's down in Iowa hunting, not really telling anybody where he is. On the way back, he drives through this little college town, Mankato, happens to stop for a burger. and the FBI swarms his car. That tells you the FBI is tracking your cell phones, folks.
Did you get yours?
What?
Summons?
No.
They haven't raided your house yet?
No, they haven't.
Oh, man.
I must not be that important.
No, you must not be, yeah.
But this is the thing. Now they are just surrounding this web of communications of Trump, and they're taking everybody else's phone call to Trump.
Yeah.
And they're forming it from the outside. Yeah. And so these are the things that's going. It's clearly political, folks. Clearly political.
Oh, obviously. Do you remember the song? What is it? The Beatles song, Back in the USS
R.
Yeah. Yeah. It's back in the USS A.
Yeah.
Or the USS Ah.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, this is bad stuff. And anybody that can't see it, then you are basically tainted. You're not playing fair.
Yep.
I mean, just admit it. Just admit it. You hate Trump. You're not fair and unbiased. I mean, that's all I've got to say, because it is so obviously wrong.
Yeah.
It's so obviously unconstitutional, un-American, and un-everything else that, I mean, we don't even need to say anymore.
And it's not that Trump is that important to me. It's the policy and the tenacity and style with which Trump furthered America's greatness.
Yeah.
That's what's important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is. It is. Hey, conservatives are fighting back, though. Mm-hmm. We are fighting back in different ways. The open border policy we've got, and it's governors that are doing it.
Yes.
It's so good to see. We haven't been affected yet. We haven't seen any of the effect yet that Texas, Arizona, Florida, California seem to have been seen. California doesn't seem to care, and I don't care if they don't care. But Florida and Texas they care.
Yeah.
And they're starting to take action. Governor Ron DeSantis and the governor of Texas, for some reason today I'm having a hard time remembering his name, Greg Abbott.
Yeah.
They have started busing people
Yes.
to New York, Chicago, and even Martha's Vineyard.
Thank you.
And-
And what happened to Martha's Vineyard?
Oh my goodness! Can you believe it?
Yeah.
They kicked them. They called out the military.
The military
governor-
transported him off to some military base in Massachusetts.
Yeah. Can you believe
Now,
it?
think about that. Can we get them removed from Tulsa? Can we get them removed from, Wichita? No, but Martha's Vineyards can get rid of the riffraff.
That's right.
And I say riffraff not because that's what I believe they are, but that's obviously where the snobs in Martha's Vineyard see them.
You know what? They need to send more. They need
Yes.
to keep flying them in daily, and then have the buses and then have the news there, and just keep reporting how they're.
Yes.
But here's what's really funny. I don't know if you saw this, but NBC News. Did you hear about this story? Okay, there's a reporter, or actually it's not a reporter, but he's a blogger, I guess. His name is Max Lefeld. Okay, and he's the founder of an organization called Casa Venezuela Dallas Foundation. Okay, it's a charity group dedicated to helping refugees. Okay, now get this. So it's a charity foundation to help refugees. Now he says this quote. He sent this out in a blog. It was on Twitter. He tweeted this. Mm-hmm. It's like taking my trash out and just driving to different areas where I live and just throwing my trash there. And so this is what he spoke of as far as the governors of Florida and Texas sending people to different states.
Yeah.
He equated the refugees with trash.
Yep.
This is what liberals think. Mm-hmm. This is what liberals really think, that we're supposed to take this trash and it's no big deal. But no, don't send them to Martha's Vineyard. Yeah. Don't send them to the vice president's house.
Yeah,
in DC.
that was another development.
Yeah, don't send them there. Definitely don't send them to Max Lefeld's place. Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me? And so MSNBC tried to take it down after, because they realized, oh man, how in the heck did this get on here? Yeah, and he called this a dehumanizing political stunt. Oh, and to top that off, so that's not bad enough. So the governor of California, our dear
Gavin Newsom. Yes.
greasy-haired Gavin Newsom, Nuisance, I like to call him Gavin Nuisance. He now is trying to bring kidnapping charges against DeSantis.
Yes.
Yeah. And
The former Mr. Guilfoyle, yes.
yeah, he's trying to bring kidnapping charges against Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis because they're putting people on buses and planes and sending them to Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
Imagine, what a horrible, the humanity of it all, the inhumanity of sending people to Martha's Vineyard. He's kidnapped them and sent them to Martha's Vineyard, never to be heard of again.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, come on.
And then there's the story of Lori Lightfoot, the dictator of Chicago, who got offended. Not that there were, and she wants to be very clear, it's not that refugees were sent here, but the governor of Texas didn't have the decency to call ahead of time and let her know. So you know what she does? She puts that bus out to a suburb of Chicago without telling that suburb that they're coming. You know, the hypocrisy of it all.
Yeah, a suburb needs to put them back on the bus and send them right back to her house.
Her house.
They need to just allow them out right in front of her house.
That was the beauty of having, what do we call her, border czar, Harris, dumping them off right at the vice president's residence there at the Naval Observatory in D.C. Yeah. You know, look, she says, our borders are secure. Boom, 50 of them on your front curb.
Yeah, but the hypocrisy of the Democrat Party is just astounding.
It is.
I mean, if America can't see it, if we can't see it, there's no help for you. I mean, there's no help for you if you cannot see the hypocrisy involved in what's going on.
Yeah, and I love what Dr. McCullough called it. Well, I think he borrowed the phrase from someone else, mass formation psychosis, when the media gaslights the masses in concert with each other. And they have this narrative, and it's so ridiculous. Yeah. You know?
It is.
It's Baghdad Bob times 1,000.
Oh, yeah. Hey, listen, I've got to do this again, okay? So I can't do this enough, okay? I'm going to harp on it week after week after week until it makes a dent. The word democracy. Every time Joe Brandon Biden opens his mouth now and makes a speech, he mentions the word democracy. Every time you hear Schumer, Pelosi, whatever the vice president's name is, these people, they're talking about a threat to our democracy, okay? What they're speaking of is not democracy. Now, I've mentioned this before. I talked about it on on Facebook this week in a long post that I wrote. If you're not Facebook friends, it's Eddie Huff. It's very simple.
It's a good blog.
I studied cult apologetics under Walter Martin. If you haven't gotten the book, you can still find it. I'm sure it's probably cost $1 million now. I don't know if it's still in print or you can get but I don't think it's that cheap because it gets more valuable as the time goes on. But the most important part of the book is speaking of what's called redefinition of terms. And I've talked about this before. Never forget this, okay? What he speaks, and this is right early in the introduction, he talks about redefining terms, that cults, what they do, they redefine terms. The Nazis did this. The communists did this. Every organization that wants to control the people's minds redefines terms. So cults, for example, to fool Christians, they redefined what salvation is. They redefined what justification is. They redefined resurrection. They took out so that when you speak to a culture, well, what about salvation? What about resurrection? What about a second coming? What about when you say this to them, it means something totally different because they've redefined it in their teaching to their people. What the Democrat Party is doing, they have redefined democracy to mean what they want it to mean. And what they want it to mean is whatever they say, whatever they're doing, that's democracy.
Right.
Not the freedom of expression, not we the people rule. No, it's the government rules. Okay.
Right.
Now, here's the thing that gets me. Is it 1 Timothy 2? That pray for the king and those who rule over you.
Or 3?
No, I
2.
know it's 2. It's either I can't remember it's 1 or 2 Timothy. It's 2 Timothy, yeah. Okay. That we're to pray for the king and those who rule over you and da. Okay. Christians always want to pull this out that we're supposed to pray for the king, our leaders, da. Here's the problem, okay? America is different from every nation prior to America. We don't have a king, okay? The people are the king. If you look at the Declaration and the Constitution, the people are the king. This is how it used to work. You had a king, lords, et cetera, on down. All the way back to even biblical times in Samuel 8, where Samuel set up the king, and then he set up, you had the priest, and then he had his judges under him.
The ministers, yes, the prime minister. Let's look at what happened.
Right, but don't hold that
it.
because I want to finish
your point.
Okay, because so here's the point that in America where we're set up, it's flipped totally upside down.
Right,
totally upside down. The people are king.
Yes,
the people rule, and then we as a people elect what? We elect delegates and then representatives, okay? We have mayors, we have governors, we have Congress representatives, we have senators, and then from there, we have a president.
Right.
And then the president has a staff. That's all these people are. Cabinet members are nothing but staff people.
Yes.
We treat these cabinet members, Buttigieg, we treat him like what he says we're supposed to listen to, the secretary of this or this. Remember, the term is secretary. Yeah. He's a secretary. He has no authority. He should have no authority at all.
Right.
We have the authority. We as the people and our elected officials locally. He's not elected. He's appointed. And so you as a believer must understand that you and the majority of what you say locally, statewide, and nationally, that is who rules. So you cannot be dictated to by this guy yelling about MAGA,
right?
Yelling about democracy, our democracy. When he says our democracy, he's talking about him and his little cabinet people and the Democrats that have the majority right now.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you, as soon as the Republicans take over, that democracy, they're going to yell, no, that's not our democracy. That's something else.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to borrow from a very, current issue. The Queen has died, right, of England. That's exactly the opposite of the way the United States is. But let me make a point here. Because the Queen gives permission to the head of the ruling party in Parliament, the House of Commons, to set up a government. She gives permission. And that's one of the last official acts she did the week before she died, was the newly, appointed prime minister goes there and asks permission to set up a government. And then she sets up ministers under her. She's the prime minister.
Right.
And what we do in the United States is every 4 years, we give permission to somebody to set up a government, and they set up ministers under them.
Right.
You know, and I want to take it just a little bit further on this. People talk about the wisdom of our founding fathers in setting up the Bill of Rights. No, the founding fathers screwed up, and we rejected the U.S. Constitution on the first go around, and then we, the people, gave a demand. We said, you either put this Bill of Rights in, or you're not organizing a government, period. No Constitution. That's the people rising up and saying, no, these are our terms.
Right.
And it's time for the voters to rise up.
Exactly. And what is that first thing they put in the Bill of Rights?
Speech.
Freedom of speech. And so when Donald Trump gets up on January 6th and makes a speech, I don't care what he said, unless he said, go burn down the Capitol, go
Right.
burn down the White House. If he said, I'm unhappy with the people in office and I wish they weren't there and blah, 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 blah. I don't care. After that, what the people do, that's up to them.
Right.
That is not his
Yeah.
problem. That is not his
Okay.
fault. He has a right as a citizen to say, I have a right to say, I'm unhappy with Joe Biden. I don't like Joe Biden. Every time I turn, right now, we've got a governor's race. You got the ads with Joy Hoffmeister saying she's unhappy with Kevin Stitt. Is that insurrection in the
Right.
state of Oklahoma?
Right. Now, he said, go peacefully. Why is the word peaceful important? Because the Constitution, First Bill of Rights, the First Amendment says to peaceably assemble. So he said, do it peacefully, do it patriotically. Now, I'm going to give you another word. When you talk about redefining terms, the media in the United States, this has been going on for centuries, is they've redefined the term press. The word press refers to a machine of duplication, not to an industry. And the people in mainstream media want to twist the word press to refer to their industry. And the Constitution does not guarantee their industry. The freedom of the press is an extension of the freedom of speech. It's the right to reproduce and distribute your free speech. It belongs to every citizen.
Yeah, but see, I don't even have a problem with it applying to the industry.
Yeah, it's just they don't have a special right that the rest of us don't have.
Oh, well, you're right, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, but I think that comes under the entire First Amendment. In other words, the freedom of speech and the freedom to assemble. Yeah, the freedom to assemble. The people on January 6th had the freedom to be able to assemble.
Yes.
No, you can't say anything. You know, the people, what was it, a week, 2 weeks before January 6th, where they had the riot there in D.C., where they were taking chunks of cement, throwing them at the police. They were water bottles filled with urine, throwing them at the police. The police in D.C., it wasn't the Capitol Police, it was the D.C. police just under assault, under siege, as they're tearing down statues, just tearing the place. Oh, nothing to see here. It was a freedom of expression. Are you kidding me?
Mostly peaceful.
Oh, the mostly peaceful one was when the place was on fire up there.
That was in Minneapolis. That's my old precinct. I live there.
Goodness. Yeah. So come on. You know, this is what, but this is when you talk to Christians, this is what I'm really speaking to. This is what really irks me, okay? Christians get so hung up on this thing, we need to pray for Joe Biden. Yeah, pray for him, but don't sit there and kiss his butt. Don't sit there and accept everything that these people are saying and say, oh no, we still need to support our government. We shouldn't be talking against our... If we followed 2 Timothy 2, we wouldn't have a country right now. Mm-hmm. We would not be an independent nation. Yeah. We'd be the subjects of England today. Right. We'd have countries all over the world that would still be subject of kings throughout the world, okay? Mm-hmm. God did not cause us to do that. In fact, it was never God's will that Israel appointed a king.
Right. Right.
That was something, in fact, Samuel, again in Samuel 8, told them what would happen if they appointed a king. And if you look at Samuel 8 and read it, it's a warning to us today what he's going to do if we make them king. And you people, you, I'm pointing at you. If you don't wake up and do something, it's going to happen again. Mm-hmm. This is what's going to happen.
Yeah, we're not the sheep. We're the shepherds.
We have got to wake up and stand up. And our founders gave us a process. And I'm asking you, in Oklahoma, to begin with, this fall, in 1 month, well,
8
a little
weeks.
over a month,
8 weeks.
2 months, to go to the polls. This is how we do it. We go to the polls and reject. I say, just out of hand, reject anything. If it has a D in front of it, nope.
Yeah.
Just reject it. Reject anything they say. Trust me, it's going to be a lie.
Can I segue into some Oklahoma stuff?
Hold on. Let me make sure I'm
Okay.
done with our national stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I've got,
Okay.
yeah. And let me give you an example, okay, of the kvatch. Mm-hmm. I'm going to use the word kvatch from now on instead of the American word kvatch. The Defense Department has to launch a review of the equity chief. This is our Defense Department. This is a military officer, okay? After disparaging posts about white people were exposed, okay? This is from our Defense Department, okay? The diversity chief. Now, first of all, we don't need a diversity chief. You've got diversity in the military. We've had diversity in the military. We've had it for a long time. Anyway, she went dark. It's funny. She went dark. That's somebody messed up there. She went dark on social media after her posts were exposed. But anyway, the Defense Department said it was reviewing a woke diversity chief after Fox News Digital found that she posted disparaging posts about white people. The chief of diversity and equity and inclusion. Oh, there's that DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's a red flag right there. At the Department of Defense education activity. Again, wasted money. We don't need this, okay? Her name is Kalisa Wing. She described herself on Twitter as a woke administrator. Man, there's so many red flags here. It's like a submarine. She'll be, whoa, whoa, whoa. And she said she was exhausted at these white folks in professional development sessions. And anyway, what happened, she wrote on Twitter, they found there where she says, she was talking about a white official. She said, this lady actually had the not audacity, the caudacity as in Caucasian, the caudacity to say that black people can be racist too. I had to stop the session and give Karen the business.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. We are not the majority. We don't have the power, Wing said on Twitter. Caudacity is a slang term that is used to describe audacity demonstrated by white people.
Can I say something like this?
Well, let me finish this.
Okay, finish the quote.
You're using your caudacity again.
Yes, I am.
On another occasion, Wing responded to a user who said, I'm exhausted by 99% of white men in education and 90% of white women. Where can I get a break from the white nonsense for a while? Wing responded and said, if another Karen tells me about her feelings, I might lose it.
Yeah.
She had no compassion for a white woman complaining about, male oppression,
right? Because
she's just so upset with white women. And this is the person in the U.S. military over equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Yeah, but we've got to address and dispel and destroy this notion that if you lack the power to intimidate and enforce and overwhelm, you somehow have to have all of that overwhelming power in order to be a bad person. Yeah. I've raised 3 kids. And I'm pretty proud of these kids, but you know what? They weren't angels. There's sometimes when they were 1, 2 years old, I had to teach them not to hit their siblings, right?
Or bite.
Yes, or bite. Why? Eddie, if you don't train them when they're little, the rest of their life, they will be nothing but a problem to you and society, an embarrassment to you as a parent because you're a bad parent. Okay, I saw a video a couple months ago of some cops on the neighborhood beat, and some black kids, 2-3 years old, come up and start kicking these cops.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Okay, but Eddie, they lack the power to be racist, right? So those kids aren't being taught to be racist. They can't be racist because they don't have their power to, right? Because they're 2 years old. Here's the thing. If you don't correct them, you don't break them of that bad behavior. Now, when they do have the ability, they will be a terror to society.
It's being instilled in them.
Yeah.
And it's, but see, here's the thing about it. It wasn't racist because the cop that they were doing that to, if I'm not mistaken, was a black cop.
It's not that it was racist. It's that it's bad behavior, disrespect for other human beings.
Exactly. Yeah,
and,
sure.
Racism is just one manifestation of this bad behavior.
Well, as I talk about in my book,
Yeah.
there's no such thing as racism.
Yeah.
It's really not racism, period. Racism is a manufactured term that we use for classism, or
Yeah.
as the Reverend E.V. Hill says, one of the many isms that ought to be a wasm.
Yes.
Because we just
Yeah.
have these things that we give names, and it's just because we institutionalize them.
Yeah. It's
Like,
just abusive behavior.
yeah, and it's just classifying different things that we don't like.
Yeah.
I don't like Dave, so I got to figure out, and Dave may belong to a group, Republicanism. So I'm a Republicanist. I don't like Republicans, so what am I? Whatever is, I mean, we could come up with a name for that, right? Or you've got ageist.
Yeah.
There's a term ageist, people that don't like
That's right,
elderly.
boomer.
We have an issue with the elderly.
Yeah.
We have an issue, a feminist, which they like. I'm a feminist, but if you don't, you're.
But Eddie, what this woman is saying in this quote you have here is, if you're a minority that she likes, then you're an angel.
Right.
Then there's nothing wrong with you. You're perfect.
But here's the danger. They've actually given this lady power.
Exactly.
And I have to tell you a story, and this is true story. My dad, when he retired from the Army, he went to work for the Veterans Administration, okay? And he was handling claims, the precursor to PTSD, which was paranoid schizophrenia. After Vietnam, it was paranoid schizophrenia, and later, after Iraq, it's become PTSD. And so he would do these claims. But anyway, so they brought in this lady under his boss who got transferred, and then this new lady came in. And so this lady started bringing in her friends. And this is how they do this. This is how this has happened. In the Pentagon, in the VA, all of these different positions of power, areas that are influencing in our government. This is basically how the liberals and progressives have essentially taken over our nation. Mm-hmm. So they brought this lady in, and then so what she wanted to do is bring her friends in and put them in different positions. So what she tried to do is get my father fired, and this Mexican guy, a friend of my dad's, who my dad hired, a young kid. He was a young kid, and he was moving up the ladder, but she didn't like them because they didn't fit her profile, and she wanted to bring other females in. Mm-hmm. I don't know if she was a lesbian, probably was, but anyway, so she started trying to come up with all these. Well, my father was too smart. Homie didn't play that. Mm-hmm. So my dad recorded he saw things. I mean, that's the thing about my dad. He was a wise guy. So he would record and keep stuff, and he had these files. And so she was trying to pull all this stuff, and my dad had all these records. So what my dad did, he went to her supervisor.
That's how you do it.
And when she tried to finally pull this stuff to get him and this guy fired, he put all this stuff out on her, and it ended up getting her fired.
There you go.
And her whole thing was thwarted. The problem is we don't have enough smart people, or didn't have enough, to head this stuff off at the pass years ago. But the Pentagon has been overtaken. It has been overtaken by gays, lesbians, and progressives, and military intelligence.
Yeah, general wokeness.
Military in general intelligence has been overtaken by basically progressives. I don't know if it's all gays and so forth.
Wokists.
Yeah. Progressives. Let's put it that way. And they don't have to be gay, but they're
It doesn't matter what they identify as.
Leaning
what
towards
the ideology that governs them.
Right.
is.
Right. They're sympathetic to those causes and things like that.
Yeah.
And so they're more interested in social justice, in social engineering, re-engineering of America.
Yeah.
As Barack Obama used to say, a new America.
Okay.
In fact, as Michelle would say, Barack Obama, the vision for America he sees. He sees a new America.
Yeah.
Which honestly is a vision of hell. It's a vision of hell. If the vision that Barack Obama has for America comes to fruition, it's a vision of hell.
Right.
Hell on earth. And so, but these people have come into power and they're pushing it. They're pushing it. They're not waiting anymore. They're pushing it, and we've got to fight it.
I want to address this, what you called the DEI. And folks, you got to get used to this term because that's the phrase being used: diversity, equity, and inclusion. And just how pervasive it is right here in Oklahoma. University of Oklahoma doesn't just have an office for it. They have an entire department for it. Oklahoma State, get this, the State Department of Public Education, Tulsa Public Schools has hired whole staffs committed to advancing this whole narrative of that we're all a bunch of bigots, we're all a bunch of racists, we're all a bunch of whatever isms. Eddie, this election coming up is so crucial.
Yeah.
8 weeks away right now. Ryan Walters sat right here. The Republican nominee for actually having a conservative running our public school system. He's behind in the Sooner poll by 3 or 4 points to a Democrat that no one's heard of.
Yeah. You have got to get out. You've got to tell everybody you know and get them out to vote. If they're not registered, can they still register?
Oh, yeah. You can register to vote.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Get everybody out to register to vote and get them to vote. We've got to do that because here's the deal. The education lobby, they're going to get their teachers out to vote because they are going to push for more money, better hours, conditions, all of these typical DEA, okay, and DOE, I'm sorry, not DEA, Department of Education. They're going to push for all these more strikes, you name it. I mean, it's going to be the typical thing, but they want their person in there, just like they've had the lady running for governor right now who, honestly, trust me, would be an absolute disaster as a governor for Oklahoma. We cannot. I don't care what those ads look like, okay? You cannot have this lady.
Joy Hoffmeister.
Yeah, you cannot have this lady be your governor. And it's not because she's a lady. She's just bad news. I've been against her for 10 years. When she first ran for Secretary of Education, I knew she'd be a disaster, which she was, and now she's actually has the audacity. She has the caudacity to run, caudacity to run for governor. Are you kidding me? If Oklahoma is that stupid, I'm serious. I probably will move.
You can look it up. I'm going to talk to you boomers right now. Been around Oklahoma long enough to remember when Mary Easley was the most prominent senator a Democrat from Tulsa area who was basically the hatchet woman to whatever the teachers unions wanted. Mary Easley got them. You know, her, I believe it was her nephew, Kevin Easley, preceded her, was another one. Now, Joy Hoffmeister is from the Easley family. I've talked to some of her family members. I've confirmed this from them, or at least this is, their claim. And so you know where Joy Hoffmeister comes from. The teachers' industry, the organized, the cabal of all. And it isn't just the teachers, it's the administrators. It's the money that, goes into the teachers' pension funds and the people who operate that. We had 2 weeks ago, Elena Ashley talking about how much of blowback she got when she said, do we have to use BOK to handle this bond funding? Oh my God, that's why they do it, is for the money. It's getting to hang on to the purse. And so this is our problem. And right now, what's going on, and I'll cut to the chase, the reason why they're so terrified of Ryan Walters is because he wants to innovate schools and bring alternatives for families so they aren't stuck in just one choice. You live out in Weatherford, you're going to Weatherford Public Schools. Well, guess what? There's some other options would be available if our funding was made more broadly available. But right now in the Oklahoma Republican caucus in the legislature, probably about a fourth of our Republican legislators are against Ryan Walters. They may not say it publicly. A few of them do. Some of them who aren't running again are very caustically going after Ryan Walters because they're trying to keep it in place, this monopoly, this dictatorship, that's controlling our schools.
It's a double whammy, okay? You've got two entities in particular fighting against the governor and Ryan Walters. These are the two major battles that we're fighting in Oklahoma right now.
You nailed
it.
Okay. Yeah.
The governorship, the steering of the state, and the education. Okay. Yeah. Those are the two areas. And the two entities are the tribes and the education lobby. The tribes and education are the two. And so those are combining with millions of dollars. Then add to that, you've got another several $1 million coming from outside dark money interests, again, particularly against the governor, and probably to get rid of Ryan Walters, probably George Soros money, and who knows what other money. So the battle, it's a battle.
Yeah.
It's a battle. I think it's not when we can't win. Okay, it's not when we can't win. Prayer, but we've got to get feet on the ground, and you've got to wake up. You've got to wake up. Everybody that's a Republican, explain to them how important this is, and explain to them what's at stake, the realities of it. Explain to them that Joy Hoffmeister has been the Secretary of Education for Oklahoma for 8 years. Nothing has happened. If anything, we've gone backwards.
Absolutely.
And we have not only done that, we've increased the salaries of teachers. We've increased funding as they wanted to after the strike a couple of years ago.
Yes, the illegal Wildcat strike.
Right. We increased their funding, and still, and she did nothing.
No, because she's owned by them.
She's owned. We went backwards.
Yeah.
And so now they want to not only keep her there, they want to promote her to the governor where she can sit there and be a puppet worse than Joe Biden. I mean, she would be worse than Joe Biden in this state. She would be totally run by the education and every other dirty lobby you can imagine. So we have got to fight this tooth and nail, and we have got to support Ryan Walters for education.
Yes.
There's no way around it, people.
Okay.
You've got to get out there.
I got one other thing I want to say. We've been talking about this for at least 6 months. Randy Crable, I asked him about it and stuff. He didn't really want to make a commitment onto where this dark money's coming from. But you've seen the attacks on particularly Governor Stitt and the ridiculousness of it. A guy who takes his oath of office there at his inauguration in front of live TV cameras and thousands of people and makes a pledge, an anti-corruption pledge. And this dark money, people say, and still Kevin Stitt won't take an anti-corruption pledge. Well, he may not take their pledge, which they call anti-corruption pledge, which is nothing but a hack. But the point is, I'm calling on the tribes. Put up here, tell the world publicly that you've had nothing to do with the dark money, not just the tribes, but the casino entities that are under the control of the tribes. Because if I'm paying for a ticket to go see my favorite comedian down at the casino, I've got a responsibility to know where that money is going from. Sure, the comedian might get some of the money, or the concert and that. But the venue's not only going to get the money from the rent for that, but all that money that gets spent at the slot machines. And that's a lot of why this is done. It's called the loss leader in business. And folks, I'm saying the tribe only gets involved when they want something. And I've been at the Capitol, sat in committee meetings where I've been told flat out by our lawmakers, this is, the tribes hate Governor Stitt.
Oh,
they hate
sure
him,
they hate him.
especially the Cherokee tribe in Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah.
Hates him. And so this money's coming from somewhere. And I'm saying, give us a pledge. You had nothing to do with it. Sign an affidavit.
Dave, that's not going to happen.
I know it isn't, but I'm going to make them pay for not saying it.
Okay, right.
And I'm going to tell my fellow conservatives, be careful where you spend your money.
Yeah.
Because you may be bankrolling your political defeat.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit worked up here.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm with you on that, but the only way to really do it is, it's not the only way, but the way I think we're really going to do it is by getting more people out.
Oh, you have to.
If you get every Republican, every sane-minded Democrat out to support Governor Stitt.
And Eddie, I'm telling you, if you don't want to get informed, don't vote. Because I'd rather have informed people making the decisions than people that are mindlessly being controlled by who has the biggest ad budget for campaign.
But that's not going to happen. Because if people don't vote, then they win because they're going to have their minions out there voting.
I'm talking about the people who are so controlled by things like this dark money coming after Stitt.
Yeah. I worried about the dark money in the case of Markwayne Mullin.
Yeah.
Because we knew where all that dark money was, coming from. And it didn't work.
No, it didn't.
So we can only pray and trust.
But in a tight race, it's powerful. And right now, according to Sooner Poll, Bill Shepard's team says it's a 1-point margin now for Stitt.
Yeah. No, I believe it is, but that's why. But here's the thing. Joy Hoffmeister's been running cutesy ads. I've not yet seen a Stitt ad, and if he runs the proper ads, if we get enough people out there to start telling the truth, what needs to happen, people like us, other bloggers, people, the county Republican Party, the state Republican Party, various county party, need to get off their butts and start out there and telling the truth about what's going on.
Eddie, this week, I'm making a pledge to you. I'm going to go get a Ryan Walters sign. I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to go get a Kevin Stitt sign. I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to stick it in my yard now. We've got to be able to be an influence in our neighborhoods. Maybe even go knock some doors, maybe do some sign waving, maybe be those boots on the ground that they can't overcome with just a bunch of TV ads.
Yeah. I may get several of them and just start sticking them along the streets, you know, on the main thoroughfares.
Burma shave, yes. The old-fashioned bunch of signs, yes.
Yeah. No, it's good. But we've got to do it on Facebook, on Twitter, wherever you are. Just start telling the truth, here's what we need to do too, seriously. Bring out the facts.
Yeah.
On everything that Joy Hoffmeister has done and has not done.
Yeah.
And explain who's behind her.
Yeah.
And why and inform.
I got some great news.
Okay.
A lot of folks have known me as an advocate for public policy on mental health, serious mental health. The people who really are psychotic and that, and how do we properly care for them? I got some big news came out of the legislature the last 2 weeks that they are building 2 new state-run mental health facilities to replace old, broken down, very expensive ones, so that when we get this in place, and we're using actually federal money from this is the COVID Recovery Act money. And I talked with the former governor, Frank Keating, about it, like, hey, what happened? All of a sudden, we didn't have the beds available that cops used to use as a diversion to jail to say, I could arrest you right now for this misdemeanor, but I really think you need a good mental health assessment. Why don't we do that? They don't do that anymore because there's no bed available. We're getting that. This is Governor Stitt keeping a promise I talked to his wife about several times. This is a big news. You're going to see it happen here. OSU's getting on board. Some of that opioid settlement money from Purdue, I believe, is going to be coming to play on this. So I see a lot of good things happening here. Frank Keating just said, he just didn't see Brad Henry as prioritizing this. So when they closed Veneta, they replaced it, because that was closing just as Frank was leaving office. So this is some really good news that I'm seeing happen. I want to give kudos to Representative Hilbert, Speaker Pro Temp, to Charles McCall, to John Haste, our state senator from here. He had a big part to play with it, and to Governor Stitt's team.
Oh, good.
So,
hey, I was just thinking about a great ad here.
Yeah.
Here's really all we have to say.
Yeah.
Okay. If you don't want Oklahoma to become like California, New York, and Illinois, vote for Kevin Stitt.
Absolutely.
That's what you got to do. And here's the perfect clincher. Have Joy Hoffmeister have a picture of her speaking, and then have her picture morph into Joe Biden.
There you go. Yeah.
You know how they used to do with Clinton, somebody morphing into Clinton? Yeah. That's all you got to do. I mean, it should not be rocket science.
Yeah.
Right? And basically, if you can convince people, show them that every state that has a Democrat governor is down here. Every state that has a Republican governor is here.
Yeah.
It's like, Tom, what's his name? Yeah, Tom. Oh my goodness, my mind. I've got so many things trying to go through this small mind of mine. What's it? Top Gun.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Every he was in this movie where he was talking about with me, without me, with me, without me.
That's right.
Stitt, Hoffmeister, Stitt,
Yeah.
Hoffmeister, Stitt, Hoffmeister. Stitt. I mean, if you just juxtapose the two of them,
Yeah.
just show them. I mean, this is Democrat, Republican.
Yeah. No, Hoffmeister presided over the worst fall in public education scores in Oklahoma history.
Well, hello, there it is.
The
There's
worst.
the ad. That just that's the headline right there.
Right.
So you want the worst fall?
Yeah.
In
And get this,
Oklahoma for the
not
state.
only did she demand that all these schools close down.
I remember.
Get this. And I got this from the founders of Epic themselves. David Cheney told me himself, he says he was on a conference call with superintendents, and she says, and we have to shut Epic down too because we can't let them have an advantage over the rest of us. Think about that.
Yeah. No, I know all of this. I mean, yeah. I remember, this is what's so crazy. She cried because they wanted to, we had overcrowding. Mm-hmm. Remember, we had overcrowding in our schools. Mm. And then they closed 14 schools in North Tulsa.
Yeah.
And put those kids in those overcrowded classrooms. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are the kind of things that makes you just shake your head.
Yeah.
And the lady we had a couple of weeks ago,
Elena Ashley.
Elena and the what's the one from North Tulsa?
Oh, I forget the name. You kept saying it, but
but on
there's two black women,
yeah.
and they happen to be probably the two most conservative.
Yeah, on the school board.
Yeah.
But these two ladies, they know that there's something wrong with education, and it's not just Hoffmeister. You've got issues with school boards.
Yeah.
And for years we've had issues. And listen, as you know, I'm not a person to cry racism, et cetera, et cetera. And again, it's not racism. See, this is the thing.
Yeah.
It's not racism,
yeah,
as I've always said.
It's
a class thing. I remember we were trying to start an Epic. We wanted to David Brumbaugh and I.
Yeah.
We wanted to take over a building, the old Roosevelt. Do you remember Roosevelt School? It's just on the other side of 244.
Oh, sure.
Beautiful.
You can see it from the BOK Center there.
Yeah, just a beautiful school. Mm-hmm. Those people fought us tooth and nail.
Yeah.
To get that, and they wanted this other.
Now, just 4 blocks north of there is TSAS, which is one of the greatest success stories in charter schools in Oklahoma, because they've got like a 4-year waiting list to get in there.
And so we wanted to, but anyway, so but I saw some of this at its worst. What community, what the NIMBYs, not in my backyard. Mm-hmm. Crowds. I mean, these people came out with like pitchforks and knives, against, and Dave and I were just trying to say this would be a great thing. But what I was going to say is, all the way back, this was, I think, it's either in the late 90s or early 2000s. One of my clients, he had worked for PSO, and he had retired, and they made him they couldn't call him principal because he didn't have an education degree, so they called him the CEO of McLean, the high school, which I think they changed the name, but anyway, so he became the CEO of McLean High School, and he started looking into it, and he realized that there's a real problem here. They weren't playing fair. No. So what he figured out was they were purposely keeping McLean and the feeder schools, the middle school, I think it was Monroe and some others, and there were some elementary schools. They were keeping them underperforming because they receive federal money, extra money for the lower performing schools. Yeah. The problem is when the money comes, it never goes there. Yeah. It goes to Memorial, Edison, the South Tulsa schools. Which is, I mean, can you believe? I mean, this is the kind of stuff that goes on, and they want to keep those schools. The other thing is the school lunch program. Yeah. I remember my son, when he was in middle school, he came home one day, and my wife, or he was going to school, my wife was making lunch. He said, "Oh, Mom, you don't have to make lunch for me. They give me free lunch at school." She said, "They give you free lunch? What do you mean you give me?" Yeah, they give me free lunch. I have free lunch at school. What do you mean you shouldn't get free lunch? I'm making you lunch. No, they told me I'm qualify for a free lunch. They had my son sign up for a free lunch program, and we never approved it or anything. But they assumed because he was part black that he's got to be, needs the free lunch program. So they were just automatically, and this was at Union. This was at one of the Union junior high, one of the middle schools.
Yeah,
that this poor kid needs it. No, it wasn't because he was a poor kid. They get. I think they get something like $5 or $6 or maybe even more a day, and then they go and they probably contract for $3 or $4 a day.
It pays for most of their kitchen staff.
And but then they actually net like maybe $1.
Yeah.
But imagine if you got 1,000 kids and you make 50 cents or $1.
Yeah, it's a cash cow.
You end up with $1,000 a day.
Yeah.
For 300 days a year.
Pays for the janitors.
$300,000. Yeah, $300,000 a year. I mean, it ends up being crazy.
Eddie, the principle is simply this: whatever the government subsidize, it'll never go away. Remember, we got to pay more money for these underperforming schools under the guise that they will become high performing and we won't have to spend the money anymore. No. Because the administrators figure out the game.
They don't want them to
and they will make sure it never performs. Yeah. I've said this to Alina Ashley, that teachers will never get paid what they should because the administrators need them so poor that they'll go picket the Capitol again.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
There are just some things that will never happen, even though there's unlimited money you throw at it. The problem will never go away because there's too many people who are basing their perpetual power in keeping that problem existing. Yeah. What was that? I'd rather have the issue for the next election than to fix the problem.
Oh, yeah. The race problem is one. You don't want the race problem fixed.
Wayne LaPierre, probably his biggest thing was he says, I'm convinced that the Clinton administration is comfortable with a certain amount of gun violence because it furthers their agenda.
Yeah. Abortion is one.
Yes.
We've talked about this, that the anti-abortion movement, in a sense, some of them don't want the abortion.
Right. They'll have to go get a real job.
Yeah. No, money, the love of money truly is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's a sad story.
Oh, did you see where our friend Lindsey Graham stepped in it? He presented a bill to guarantee abortion for the first 15 weeks. And he called it a pro-life bill.
I did.
It was federal legislation to ban abortions after 15 weeks, but what it does is actually guarantee abortion for the first 3 months.
Yeah.
Over 3 months.
Yeah.
Lindsay, I'm sorry, but you're out of touch.
Yeah, Lindsay.
Speaking out of touch, I want to echo what Mark Wayne Mullen said, and you read it in an email. You still have a record of it. We talked about, is he going to support Mitch McConnell? He says, look, I can't vote against him if I don't have an alternative. Nobody stepped up. But he did say this. He's out of touch and his time has passed. And that's what we've got to do. Some of this, as Steve Largent used to call the old underbrush of the Senate needs to go.
Yeah, who do you think would be a good replacement?
Oh gosh, there's a few of them. I actually think what's her name? Blackburn, Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn. She might have the support.
Wow.
She might be able to pull together. I think Ted Cruz, I just don't know if he can pull together.
Yeah, Ted would
the kind of people. Yeah. But I think Marsha could.
Yeah. Ted might be a little too, what would you call it, polarizing. Too. You might want somebody that's a little less polarizing. But yet at the same time, on the right side.
Yeah, I'd like to see. I think Marsha Blackburn might be that person.
Yeah,
I think she'd be a consensus. Put it that way.
She would be good. She would be good. Yeah.
She'd be a good consensus person. I like. Now here's the racism. You can call me up for my hypocrisy. I believe it's important to have conservative women who can communicate, because you've got liberals claiming to speak on behalf of women.
Yeah.
This is why I was so adamant, and I really criticized Dr. Everett Piper for endorsing the opponent of Wendy. What's her name?
Which office?
Is state senator Wendy Stearman. She's probably the most influential. She actually sponsored the bill that became the most pro-life bill in the country right now that's in effect. And this is Wendy Stearman. And, you know, what was so hard is when we lost.
Did she win?
No, she was defeated in the primary. And that was one of those where I said, I think part of it is Bartlesville thinks they own that House seat. Earl Sears used to have it. And they didn't want some woman from Collinsville in Tulsa County representing them. And so you run into some of that. But we've, Sally Kern was a conservative voice. Now, Sally wasn't as good a communicator. And sometimes she got pigeonholed into things that really wasn't
All right,
Sally.
let's not get off too.
But here's what I want to say. It's important to have a woman who can stand when the Democrats are saying, you people hate women. You need a conservative woman to stand up and say, no, this is called loving my fellow Oklahoman men and women.
Yeah, you know, that's true. That's the thing, you know. We need to just tell them to sit down and shut up. I mean, that's
Yes.
it's time out for that stuff,
But
you know.
the point is the optics of when a woman says, no, you're wrong.
Right.
It can be very powerful.
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
you can call me hypocrite for saying it, and
No.
maybe I am.
No.
But I
you're
think
not.
sometimes it is more effective if you have somebody that's from that class that the other people claim to be speaking for but are really exploiting. I mean, hey, you see that with take Elena Ashley, all these rich liberals who claim to be speaking about the poor black people.
Yeah.
And Elena says, no, you don't speak for me.
Exactly.
So-
And especially when the things there. Well, look. We've seen it this week. The Martha's Vineyard thing exposes them, their underbelly, greater than anything I've seen in
Yeah.
the last 20 years.
Yeah, they're a bunch of bigots.
That's exactly what they are. That, you know, we are these liberal, non-racist at arm's length.
Mm-hmm.
We will see. This is something, you know. It's funny here. This is something I've written about a long time ago, and we'll close with this. I'm
Yeah.
going to close with this. Here's a. Did I ever share this? My definition between a conservative and a liberal. A conservative says, "Show me a need, and I will give and do what I need to do to take care of it." A liberal sees a need and decides what everybody needs to chip in to go
Right,
to
yes.
do it. Right.
We need to build a bigger government to
Well,
address it.
but I'm just saying, you know, they're going to decide what everybody else needs to
Right.
do to take care of it.
Right.
So that's why they don't care. They don't care about taxes going up because, you know, I'll give my 10%.
Yeah.
Where as a conservative, if I see somebody starving over here on an individual basis, I'm just going to go ahead and buy
Yeah.
them a meal. I'll take care of their medical bill. I'll take care of this. I'll take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a liberal will say, well, you know, I'm just going to do this, but it's arm's length. I don't
Yeah.
have to get personally
right,
involved.
right.
And that's how they want to do it. So they're always doing things at an arm's length because they don't have to actually deal with it. And so,
Well,
yeah. And so I've always said this as far as black people go. And this is something really I want to say. Liberals, as far as black people are concerned, the greatest way to keep any group of people from competing with my kids, right, is to convince those people that they can't compete with my kids,
yeah.
right? So once I convince you you can't compete, that's the first step, you can't compete with us, then the second step is I tell you, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. I will take care of you.
Yeah.
where you are
Yeah,
at your status.
no, I don't
And then you keep them permanently down there while my kids go to the best schools. My kids are prepared
Right.
and trained in those positions of power and money and influence are always left open
Right.
for my kids to take care of.
Right.
And your kids will let you get to a certain level every now and then,
Yeah.
but you'll never,
Yeah, Eddie, they talk the talk, but really they don't want to fix anything. They want to exploit it to grow
Right.
the swamp bigger.
Right. But in fact, they were showing the pictures of all the people on Martha's Vineyard when these people were in there. There wasn't a black, a brown, or anything else person
Yeah.
in the whole newscast. It was
Right.
all white. In fact, I've talked about this before. Martha's Vineyard has two parts to it. There's a black part of Martha's Vineyard, and there's a white part.
Well, the servants got to live somewhere, Eddie. That's really what
And that was a big part of the discussion when the Obamas were vacationing back when he was
Right.
president, whether he was going to be on the black part of the island
Right.
or on the white part, and he ended up on the white part, and that was kind of
Right.
why did he choose? Well, you know why he did it, because you black folks aren't good enough for the Obamas. He wants to
Well,
live where all the white folks are.
Yeah, and I'm not speaking as to race. I'm speaking as to economic class here. Because
Yeah, that's what you need to speak to, because that's exactly what it's
Yeah,
really
Eddie,
about.
My wife and I spent a week out in Colorado camping around. When we went to Maroon Bells there, just on the outskirts of Aspen, found out the people actually work in Aspen don't live in Aspen. They live in Glenwood Springs. And they drive to Aspen every day because you can't find housing you can afford
Right.
in Aspen.
Yeah.
Jackson Hole's the same thing. All of these white liberal enclaves where the filthy rich liberals go to live in, and then have their conferences where they applaud each other for how much they care about the poor that aren't allowed to live in their neighborhood. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
And we see it here locally. I mean, they decide, okay, we'll have all the Section 8 housing down at 61st and Peoria. We're not going to have it at 101st and Yale.
No.
Can't have that.
No, you can't have that.
Yeah.
No, they'll cut it off somewhere, but yeah, they ain't having it. Well, first of all, they'll zone it so there can be no apartments. There won't be any apartments south of 91st.
Sure.
Okay. And then the next thing, the houses will be so expensive, the land will be so expensive, nobody can build a house any further south than So it's just the way it is. Hey, well, we better wrap it up. It's been
To quote Larry Holmes, if you're rich, you ain't black, right?
Exactly. If you're black and rich, you ain't black. That's exactly right. Or any other color. I mean, for that matter. I learned that in South Africa during apartheid.
Yep.
Guy was black as crow, was right there in the middle at the most prestigious horse race and took second prize at the fashion show, he and his wife.
Oh, God.
And he was black, and I'm sitting there shocked as I can just, what is he doing there? He said, oh, that's Dr. So-and-so. But he's black. I said, yeah, so? He's rich.
Yeah. Just did.
Okay, now I get it. Oh, man. Hey, thank you all so much. Hopefully we didn't bore you. Hopefully you kept up with our stuff here today, and you can use it and go look up all of this stuff and check us out. Make sure we didn't lie to you on anything, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. God bless everybody, and this is the song that's Come Back Like a Storm. Sheila Walsh. No, it's not Sheila Walsh. What am I talking
Kate
about?
Bush.
Kate Bush.
Very much like Sheila Walsh.
Yeah. Hey, God bless. See you guys.